Hello folks and welcome back to MTG Burgeoning. You are here on our inaugural Why That Means is that anything goes. So for today, I'm MTG Burgeoning and this is a Wildcard Wednesday and with a list of 10 enchantments that are underplayed in Commander. Hello folks, I'm MTG Burgeoning here. Thanks for clicking on this video and giving us a test drive here on a completely new kind of video, one that we've never did before, but that's what's going to happen on Wild Wednesdays, baby. Anything goes. So we got 10 enchantments that are underplayed in Commander, and for the purposes of this video, underplayed will signify 2% or less in all possible decks through edhrec.com. So any of these enchantments are played in 2% or less of all decks across edhrec.com. Before we get to the top 10, I have 3 honorable mentions. The first honorable mention comes from Urza's Legacy, and it is No Mercy. For 2 and 2 black, we have this rare enchantment. Whenever a creature successfully deals damage to us, destroy it. Combat damage or direct damage, any kind of damage, that creature meets its end once No Mercy triggers. This is in 2.07% decks all across edhrec.com. It's an honorable mention because it's a little bit over the 2% mark, which, let's say, 0.07% isn't horribly over. But additionally, it is a $32 card, give or take a few cents depending on where you look. So, No Mercy is honorable mention number 1. Honorable mention number 2, staying on black enchantment mode, we have Retreat to Hagra. Now, Retreat to Hagra is in 2.11% of decks across edhrec.com. That's a little bit higher than No Mercy. So for 2 and a black, as a uncommon from Battle for Zendikar, it has the landfall mechanic, and whenever a land enters the battlefield in our control, we can choose to have target creature get +1/+0 and death touch till end of turn, or each opponent loses 1 life and we gain 1 life. We're playing lands in Commander all the time. Having this in play with some incidental life draining is very, very valuable. And still, at just a shade over 2%, Retreat to Hagra seems like it should be included in a lot of black decks all across the format. Very surprising that this isn't in more decks. And our last honorable mention is our only reserved list card, and the reason why it did not make it into the top 10. And that is Aluren. Now this is going all the way back to Tempest. Aluren, 2 and 2 green. Any player may play a creature card with total casting cost 3 or less whenever he or she could play an instant and without paying its mana cost. So that's a free creature spell all the way around. All it has to do is be 3 converted mana costs or less. Why this does not make the top 10, it is on the reserve list, so there is no potential for reprint. So the scarcity is already pretty high, this being back Tempest. This is nearly 23 years ago, October of 1997. And additionally, when we're talking about this card, we're talking about a card that, it's never been reprinted, so it's quite old. And Aluren is a card. I have the price here. Oh, right here. It's a $60 card, and it's played in less than 1% of all decks, which I can understand the scarcity and the cost of the card, but still 0.97% of decks all across the EDH format. It's a slight build around, but still the advantages are there. But because of the reasons listed previously, it's not making the top 10, but it is definitely an honorable mention. All right, so with our 3 honorable mentions out of the way, let's get down to it. Let's start with number 10, and that will be Reconnaissance. For the paltry cost of 1 white, we get an enchantment from Exodus. I'm sorry, this is not from Stronghold. My mistake. This is from Stronghold, not Exodus. Right, Stronghold. Okay, so this is a enchantment from Stronghold that has the ability for 0. We can remove target attacking creature we control from combat and untap it. That creature neither deals nor receives combat damage this turn. So what this is a resourceless, instant speed combat savior. Anyone has any kind of combat tricks that come in right before the damage step of combat, we can just tap absolutely nothing and remove one of our creatures attacking from combat and untap it, no damage. This is only played in 2.05% decks all across EDHREC. Why? I mean, it's from Exodus. I'm sorry, it's from Stronghold. Why do I keep mixing that up? It's from Stronghold. It's only a $7 to $8 card. This should be in every white deck that could support it. If you're in combat, Reconnaissance should be in your deck. That is number 10. Our number 9 card, we take another trip back to Tempest. And here we have Miri's Guile. Miri's Guile, 1 green. During our upkeep, we may look at the top 3 cards of our library and then put them back in any order. So this isn't necessarily scrying because we can't get those to the bottom of our library, but this mimics what Sensei's Divining Top does. Doesn't let us draw a card, doesn't allow us to put it back on top of its library, but what we get to do is before we draw, we set up the next 3 cards in our library every single turn. Miri's Guile is only played in 1.54% of decks. And it's not on the reserve list. For 1 green, for the ability to do that each upkeep, 1.54%. Now, granted, it's never been reprinted, and it's around a $27, $28 card, so that could definitely play into the role of why we don't see it more in the format. But still, 1 green to be able to do that, very valuable, very underplayed. Next card up, we take a trip to Shadowmoor. Everlasting Torment. For 2 and a Rakdos hybrid mana, we get an enchantment that does not allow players to gain life, and damage cannot be prevented. And all damage is dealt as though its source had Wither. And if you're not familiar with Wither, which was a mechanic that was introduced in Shadowmoor, a source with Wither deals damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters. So if it doesn't kill the creature, it definitely makes them less strong. And Everlasting Torment is played in 1.32% of decks across EDH. 1.32% for an enchantment that does this for just 2 and a hybrid Rakdos. All right, next up on the list, we are taking a trip back to Exodus. This time it really is Exodus. It's not Stronghold. And I think I'm at, yeah, oh, geez, unbelievable. Okay, so I made a mistake here. Reconnaissance is definitely Exodus as well. Same symbol. I don't know why I said Stronghold. Stronghold is the gate symbol. Never mind with that. All right, so come on, Chandra. All right. So Equilibrium, 1 and 2 blue from Exodus. 1 and 2 blue. Whenever we successfully cast a creature spell, which don't be alarmed, this was the errata on this was changed. If you go to gather, it's just whenever you cast a spell. So even if the spell is countered, we still get to do the ability. So whenever we cast a creature spell, we may pay 1 to bounce a creature. That's it. Anytime we cast a creature spell, we tap 1 and return target creature to its owner's hand. Equilibrium is played in less than 1% of decks all across EDHREC.com. Why? Equilibrium is like an $8, $9 card, but it's a blue card that can bounce creatures for just 1 extra mana when we cast a creature spell. Equilibrium should be in more decks. Less than 1%? 0.95% of decks in EDH. Wow, that's just outrageous. All right, next up, we have one of the more recent additions to Magic the Gathering. We have Aria of Flame. For 2 and a red, when this enters the battlefield, each opponent gains 10 life. Now, I get it. For a lot of players right there, nope, no chance. Every single opponent's going to gain 10 life. They could be 30, 40, 50 life we're handing out. No chance, pass. Well, let's dig a little further here. Whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell, we can put a verse counter on Aria of Flame, and then it deals damage equal to the number of verse counters on it to target player or planeswalker. So clearly you're not just going to stick this in any old deck. You are going to put this in a spell slinging deck, in a red deck, blue deck, most likely an Izzet deck, maybe Jeskai, where you're casting tons of instants and sorceries and making this just bigger and bigger and bigger and triggering every single time. Personally, for me, I have this in a Ramos deck, where this is one of the win conditions with a bunch of the charms throughout Magic's history. It's a Ramos Lucky Charm deck, and either this card or Aetherflux Reservoir are one of my win conditions, and Aria of Flame is very strong. It just builds and builds and builds, and before you know it, giving every opponent 10 life seems like a slight bump in the road for the power that this card really does have. So Aria of Flame should definitely be played more. Aria of Flame, as of right now, 0.93%. Less than 1%. 0.93%. Wow. Okay. So we've got through the bottom 5, and now it's top 5 time. Number 5, from Eldritch Moon, is Campaign of Vengeance. For 3 and Orzhov, whenever a creature we control attacks, defending player loses 1 life, and we gain 1 life. Now, notice the text. It says whenever a creature. It does not say whenever 1 or more creatures. So if you're attacking with 4 creatures, someone's losing 4 life, or some opponents are losing 4 life, and we're gaining 4 life. This is marvelous in Aristocrats. This is marvelous in This is marvelous in Knights, Aristocrats, Humans. Wherever you're attacking with tons of creatures, this card is just bonkers. Campaign of Vengeance is played in 0.89% of decks across EDH. 0.89%. From Eldritch Moon, and it's only a quarter. Campaign of Vengeance. Number 4, similar to Aria of Flame, this one might be a slight build-around card, but from Judgment, we have Hunting Grounds. For a green and a white, all it says is Threshold. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, we may put a creature card from our hand into play. We have Threshold as long as we have 7 or more cards in our graveyard. It is not hard to get 7 cards into a graveyard in EDH. It is not hard at all. That's an afterthought. That's just a few rounds of ramping if you have the right number of spells and fetch lands, or you'll just say fetch lands like that, including Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse, Fabled Passage, Prismatic Omen. This is just an awesome card. If we have Threshold, whenever an opponent casts a spell, we're putting a creature card into play. Now, again, you probably don't want to just insert this just for the sakes of inserting it. It's a slight build around, but it's very powerful. Very, very powerful card. Hunting Grounds is around $10, and it's played in nearly a little more than 0.5% of decks across EDH. 0.58%. Wow. Top 3. Okay, here we go with number 3. Number 3 is Cloud Cover, a rare from Plane Shift. It costs 2 and an Azorius, and whenever another permanent we control becomes a target of a spell or an ability an opponent controls, we may return that permanent to our hand. We may return that permanent to its owner's hand. So this pretty much gives us the option of saying, oh, you're going to destroy this permanent? No, I'll put it back into my hand. You're going to steal this permanent? No, I'm going to put it back into my hand. Oh, you're trying to exile that? No. Let's put that back into our hand. Cloud Cover is awesome. It's played in less than 0.5% in all decks through EDHREC.com. 0.43%. 0.43% plays this card. This is a $2 card. And it's not like white and blue are super rare in the EDH format. Not getting it. Cloud Cover, number 3. Number 2 goes out to all of the Mardu players out there. Your Kalia players, your Vampires, Edgar, Jarina Kudrow, and that is from Apocalypse. We have Fervent Charge. For 1 and Mardu, we have an enchantment that whenever a creature we control attacks, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Let's be honest, if we're playing Mardu in EDH Commander, we're winning by attacking. We're attacking with vampires, we're attacking with humans, we're attacking with knights. This bumps them +2/+2 whenever any one of them attacks. They're getting this temporary buff until end of turn. Fervent Charge is played in 0.39% of decks all across EDHREC.com. 0.39%. This is a $1 card. And whenever a creature we control attacks, it gets +2/+2 till end of turn. An Anthem is generally 3 CMC. It's generally 1 and 2 white, something like that, to give creatures we control +1/+1 throughout the entire game. For just 1 more mana across the colors of our deck, it's whenever we attack, it's getting +2/+2. That's what we want. A quick clock, kill the creatures, or buff the creatures, kill the opponents, get to the next game. Fervent Charge. And number 1 on the list, the last card, we take a trip to Invasion. And for this rare, we have Vile Consumption. For 1 in Dimir, all creatures have, at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice this creature unless you pay 1 life. In the Dimir colors of Commander, it's not like we're generally putting out tons and tons of creatures. Specifically, if we add white to the equation and play Esper, we're not really playing any creatures at all. We're usually just trying to win through control, attrition, taxes, and things like that. Vile Consumption fits these needs and checks all of the boxes. Vile Consumption is played in 0.20% in all decks through EDHREC.com. 0.1%, 0.20. This is a $1 card. Vile Consumption, why aren't you played more? And folks, that is it. That is MTG Burgeoning's list of 10 enchantments that are underplayed in EDH Commander. Agree? Disagree? Think a card shouldn't be there? Think another card should? Let me know in the comments. Burgeoning out. Want to become a Pack Wars combatant? 4 easy steps. Step number 1. Click on the link below in the description or go to www.buymeacoffee.com/MTGBurgeoning. Step number 2. Select either membership or support. Membership will enroll you into Pack Wars for $5 each month. Support will cost $5 for 1 month. Step number 3, complete payment information. The name you use will appear on the site. Use your real name, use your YouTube handle, or use no name at all and be anonymous. Be sure to include your email address in the information. Step number 4, most importantly, prepare for war.